Hello you dirty dogs and welcome back to One on One, the most in-depth football show on YouTube. Isn't that right? Former Real Madrid president Roman Calderon.
I don't think it's that exactly right.
Anyway, last week over 3,000 of you voted for your topic of choice and a whopping 39% of you wanted to know what the hell has happened to Valencia. Now, if you want your say on future episodes, then make sure you're following me on Twitter and on Instagram. We do these deep dives every 2 weeks. Also, make sure you stick around for the end of the video where I'll be replying to some of your comments from the previous episode. Let's go. The snapshot. Between 1999 and 2004, Valencia won La Liga twice, reached the Champions League final twice, won the UEFA Cup and triumphed in the European Super Cup. Since then, it's been tumultuous to say the least. The only piece of silverware Los Che have lifted has been the Copa del Rey, and in the last 5 seasons alone, they've finished in the bottom half of the table twice. Their worst run of form since being relegated in the mid-80s. In the 2019-20 campaign, they narrowly avoided making it 3, finishing behind plucky minnows Getafe and Granada. Their budget is 5 times that of the latter. Simply put, this should not be happening. Valencia have spent 85 campaigns in the top flight, the 4th best record in the division. Their history is also littered with great champions. The all-conquering side of the 1940s, the Fairs Cup winning side of the 60s, Mario Kempes' swashbuckling outfit of the late 70s and early 80s, and the side that finished 7 points clear of Il Fenomeno's Real Madrid in 2004 at the summit of La Liga. Valencia is also the 3rd biggest city in Spain, and as such has access to a huge pool of talent, illustrated by recent alumni of the Paterna. Not to mention they have the 5th biggest stadium in La Liga and the same average attendance as Chelsea. The hope that Singaporean billionaire Peter Lim, who purchased the club in 2014 for €100 million, would bring some much needed stability to the flailing Spanish giants has since evaporated. After being hailed as a saviour upon his arrival at the cash-strapped club, the fans now want him out. But are their demands reasonable? By the end of the 1920 season, Lim's 6th year in charge, Valencia had burned through 6 permanent managers and 6 directors of football, an almost identical rate to the 6 chaotic years that preceded his takeover. A lack of progress on the new stadium and a failure to qualify for the Champions League in 2021 has led to brutal cost-cutting measures this summer. Hence the uptick in media attention. At the time of writing, the club are yet to invest a single penny in new playing personnel, while parting ways with around €53 million worth of talent. Former captain Dani Parejo, who was with the club for almost a decade, was one of the first to depart, reportedly against his wishes. Despite leading the side to their first piece of silverware in 11 years in the 18-19 campaign and carrying Los Murciélagos on his back for large parts of the 1920 season, he was released on a free. The club said they no longer wanted to foot his $90k a week salary. He was reportedly willing to negotiate. Valencia weren't. A tearful Parejo was left to say goodbye to the fans on a Zoom call in his own living room before departing for regional rivals Villarreal. Hardly an exit befitting that of a club legend, and a bitter pill for the fans to swallow. Spanish international Rodrigo Moreno, the club's top goal scorer in 17-18, has also departed for Premier League new boys Leeds, apparently preferring a relegation dogfight than another season on the East Coast. Ferran Torres, Valencia's brightest prospect in the last decade, has also departed for English shores, joining Manchester City for £21 million. This was despite expressing a desire to stay. Although in some ways, the latter is easier to rationalise. He only had a year left on his contract and was insisting on being captain as part of his renewal. Apparently Lim didn't even turn up to negotiations. Unfortunately for Valencianos, more high-profile exits are likely to follow. President Anil Murthy recently scribed in an open letter to fans, "We must bring down salaries, which means selling players with 2 years or less remaining on their contracts with high wages," citing debt, COVID, and the general mismanagement of the squad for the main reasons behind this. Now, according to Transfermarkt, 13 of Valencia's 25 players have contracts that expire between now and 2022, and that includes players that have returned from loan. Even with Murphy estimating that Valencia's revenue will likely fall by half over the next 2 campaigns, parting ways with most of the starting XI feels like a disproportionate response. Maybe Lim and Murphy are clearing house of all those that supported previous regimes that they disagreed with. Alternatively, maybe the owner is balancing the books in a bid to appeal to prospective buyers. This is allegedly a view held by local radio station Taronja, who reported that Lim enlisted the help of close friend and football super agent Jorge Mendes to help find potential suitors. Although it must be said the validity of this source hasn't been confirmed, and it does contradict Murphy's recent claims that this is neither the beginning nor the end. We must learn from the past. It's not just mediocre results on the pitch that the fans have had to withstand either. It's the constant drama off of it, from the negligent to the nefarious. One former club president was jailed for conspiring to abduct his successor, caught out because he allegedly hired a police informant to help with the kidnapping. Now, Lim's rap sheet isn't anywhere near as ludicrous. The most serious accusation levelled at him has been the stagnation of a once great club. Although his retort would no doubt be there might not be a Valencia without his intervention. Like the bat on the club's crest, a dark mood hangs over the Mestalla. This bad blood has also led to ugly exchanges on social media, where, as well as disgruntled fans, even club legends have felt compelled to weigh in. This trial by media has led Peter Lim's daughter to state on her Instagram, "Don't they, the fans, get it? The club is ours and we can do anything we want with it, and no one can say anything." Now, herein lies a big part of the problem. It's getting increasingly hard to differentiate what is personal and what is business when it comes to the Lims and Valencia. For example, Murphy's tact when it's come to getting rid of players has become increasingly heavy-handed. In his open letter to stakeholders that we've referenced throughout this whole video essay, he said that some playing personnel were getting older and some are prone to injury. Yes, Danny Parejo is the wrong side of 30 and Francis Coquelin fast approaching that. However, Parejo played the most minutes in the squad last season and Coquelin came 9th. And surely Murphy knew that these remarks would devalue some of the club's best assets, right? It's as though he's comfortable with this as long as it allows him to shift the blame to previous setups. Just 2 years ago, it seemed like the club were going to put these petty dramas behind them. In the 18-19 campaign, Los Che finished 4th under Marceloino for the 2nd consecutive year, as well as lifting the Copa del Rey. The club also reported their most profitable year to date. Now, fans can only watch on in horror as clubs like Sevilla, Real Sociedad, Villarreal, even Getafe tighten their grip on Spain's European berths. Who is Peter Lim? When Lim bought Valencia for an initial £82 million, the club were crippled with debt. Not to mention the fact that construction on their new stadium, the new Mestalla, had stopped in 2009 owing to the global economic crisis. It wasn't just the club that was struggling either. It was the entire city. Businesses across the autonomous region had overspent in a big way. So when Lim, Singapore's 17th richest man, rode into town with his $2 billion fortune in tow, there was a buzz of optimism. The deal to buy the club took an entire year to finalise, as Lim was renegotiating Valencia's debt with creditors Bankia. Murphy would later claim that until Lim stepped in, there was no cash in the bank to pay anyone's wages. Where did he earn his fortune? Lim comes from humble beginnings. His father was a fishmonger and his mother was a housekeeper. He grew up with 6 siblings in a 2-bedroom flat in the Bucket Ho Sui housing estate in Singapore. After completing national service, Lim went to Australia to study, working as a taxi driver, a cook and a waiter to pay his way through university. His first job was in accounting, but everything quickly gave way to stockbroking. He served mostly Indonesian clients and earned millions of dollars through commission. Following a high-profile divorce, he gave up stockbroking and took up investing, and it was in this period of his career where his fortunes soared. In 1996, he invested $10 million in the Indonesian palm oil business. By 2010, these same shares were worth $1.5 billion. Today, his portfolio includes property, healthcare, motorsports, and high-end security. He even tried to buy Liverpool in 2010, settling for 40% of Salford City instead. The early years. Lim's first managerial appointment was the relatively young and inexperienced Nuno Espirito Santo. The former Porto goalkeeper had been managing at Rio Ave in the Portuguese top flight, leading the Northerners to the Europa League for the first time in their history. Admirable, yes, but not normally enough to land you the Valencia job, unless you're a client of Jorge Mendes, that is. After all, he's reportedly the man who persuaded Lim to buy the club in the first place. This affiliation is important to note, as it's become a great source of contention among the fans. The agent's sway was evident from the get-go. Even before Lim had closed the deal for Valencia, in came Andre Gomes and Rodrigo Moreno from Benfica, albeit through the back door. Lim bought the economic rights to both players and then loaned them to his future club. This practice is also known as third-party ownership and was banned by FIFA in 2015. While both players proved successful, there's also been some high-profile flops from Mendes' stable of talent, including €25 million recruit Ayman Adenor. In 2015, the club publicly denied that Mendes ran their transfer policy. Lim's next instalment as manager was business associate Gary Neville, who would go on to post the lowest win percentage of any Valencia boss in La Liga history. The next two managers, Paco Ayestan and Cesar Prandelli, didn't fare much better. Between them, they managed 22 league games, winning just 6. The most successful coach in this period was caretaker manager Salvador Gonzalez, known around the club as Vorro. He's also called the Wolf, as in the Wolf from Pulp Fiction, because he comes in, fixes the problem, and leaves, which is brilliant. By the end of 2016, Lim had burned through 4 permanent managers in less than 12 months, with several members of the board also stepping down. His vision for the club was already compromised. As Spanish football journalist Graham Hunter notes, for Lim's version of financial health, Valencia had to qualify for the Champions League every season for the next 10 years without fail. That season, 2015-16, they failed. 23 points off finishing 4th, no European football of any kind. Santo may have been Mendes' idea, but his sacking and the subsequent 3 managers were all of Lim's making. None of the aforementioned managers had any La Liga experience, and while this isn't a prerequisite, it has led critics to conclude that Lim puts personal relationships ahead of what is best for the club. In 2016-17, Valencia finished 12th again, 27 points off the Champions League places, and leapfrogged by the likes of Alaves, Eibar and Malaga. Enter Marceloino. A false dawn. The appointment of former Villarreal manager Marceloino, the 8th change in just over 3 years, would however prove to be inspired. Along with sporting director Matteo Almani, Marceloino transformed the sides with a series of savvy signings. This included the likes of Jeffrey Kondogbia, Gonzalo Guedes and Andreas Pereira on loan. These players, married with the existing talent at the club, deployed in Marceloino's robust, hard-working, counter-attacking 4-4-2 system, supercharged the club to a 4th place finish, just 3 points off of Real Madrid. To be fair to Lim, to solidify this position, he did invest €120 million the next summer. Unfortunately, the 18-19 season began in disastrous fashion, with the team just winning 4 of their first 17 league games. After much persuasion from Almani, Lim resisted the temptation to sack Marceloino halfway through the season, but the relationship grew increasingly fractious from there, with team selection always a sticking point. This only worsened when Lim insisted that Marceloino drop his key players for the opening exchanges of the Copa del Rey to instead focus on securing 4th place. Marceloino refused, playing a full-strength side despite being 10 points adrift of 4th at the turn of the year. Fortunately for the former Villarreal boss, there was no injuries to key personnel, and, more importantly, he knew he had the backing of the changing room, which apparently only irked Lim further. Striker Rodrigo told the press after an abysmal start that it wouldn't be right to sack the manager, and Danny Parejo tweeted, "This team never gives up." 9 victories in their last 13 league games meant they eventually leapfrogged Getafe in the dying embers of the season. Despite the infighting and internal politics, Marceloino had once again delivered 4th. it was the club's best run of league form since finishing three times from 2009 to 2012. After Marceloino was sacked in the subsequent season, he would later reveal the extent of Lim's indifference towards both him and the Copa del Rey victory. They didn't tell me why they didn't want the Copa, only that it was a minor tournament and I could be putting the main goal at risk. Winning the Copa was the trigger for this situation. When I went to Singapore, I was congratulated for qualifying for the Champions League, not for winning the Copa. Subordination aside, President Murphy has since cited other reasons for this turnover in management, such as the club's inability to blood youngsters in Marcelino's reign, concluding the issue with the following: Marcelino's project was different from the owner's project. New Mestalla, same old. One huge obstacle that Lim is yet to overcome is reigniting the New Mestalla project that started in 2007 and then was put on hold in 2009 in the face of a global economic crisis. The crux of the issue is this: they have to sell the grounds of the old Mestalla to raise enough capital to then finish the new stadium, thought to be in the region of 150 million euros. This still hasn't happened, and the whole of Valencia are starting to get on Lim's back over it, including the vice mayor. Meriton, who are Lim's holding company, thought they'd found a buyer and that they were going to finalise in March of this year. However, the prospective buyers then pulled out because they couldn't guarantee their investment. The stadium is absolutely imperative to the club's progression. Basically, they need to improve their matchday revenue in order to combat their limited commercial revenue. In 2018, when they faced off against Manchester United in the UCL, their commercial revenue for that year stood at 16.8 million euros. By comparison, Manchester United's was 276 million. The club has since committed to finishing the new Mestalla by 2022. Watch this space. Conclusion. So there we have it. A lot to take in and a lot to wrap my head around in just 2 days. If I've missed any vital information, please let me know in the comments below. Do not mind being corrected whatsoever. Let's summarise then. So the club desperately needed Lim's investment when he first arrived, with debts totaling around 350 million euros. However, money has not equaled stability, and Lim's choice in manager has been questionable. The one coach who was capable of leading them to the Champions League refused to entertain Lim's meddling when it came to team selection. From Lim's point of view, he had a manager that wouldn't prioritise what he perceived to be the key objective. Ultimately, and this is my final point, the legacy of Lim's ownership at current is that Atletico Madrid and Sevilla are now the third and fourth clubs of Spain. Historically, this has been Valencia. Now, they're just part of the chasing pack. That's the end of one-on-one. Let me know what you'd like to see next time round in the comments below. But on the subject of comments, let's see what you were saying in the last video. First one's from Manus O'Connell then. At 7:13, he said, "What kind of way did you pronounce the Gers?" And I must admit, this is a bit of a stinker from me. I pronounced it Gers. It's pronounced with a J, not a G. Didn't really realise I was doing it, to be honest. No one behind the camera when I shoot these at home. That's why sometimes the framing's a little bit off. There's no one to say, "Stop, Chris, you're making a tit of yourself." So, hold my hands up. Mistake. And I envisage plenty more, to be perfectly honest, shooting in this little shoebox. Ben Baker has said, "Yes, more Celtic content, please," all in caps locks. I love how excited you are, Ben. Love that passion. Also, good alliteration from you. Ben Baker, BB. Strong work from your parents. It's also got 9 likes down there. Is that for 9 in a row? See what we did there. Cosmic. Theo Paul, who just came to watch this after Sunday vibes. Love it, Hamill. No, I love you, Theo, because that means you've watched at least 60 minutes of FD and EFD content back to back. And it's thanks to fans like you that we're still going, because my God, was it looking grim in April, people, to be perfectly frank with you, all right? Mob Era 89. Why does he talk like he's narrating Game of Thrones or something? 63 likes, so. I imagine you mean the fact that I've put lots of intonation, lots of rise and falls on the starts and the ends. And I do that because my natural accent, being from the Midlands, fairly bland. And the average view duration would be about 3 fucking seconds if I spoke to you in my Leicester drawl throughout, alright? So I give it the old Jeremy Clarkson. You got to give it some beans. And I'm not going to apologise for putting emotion in my voice. Does it come to me naturally? Right, that's it. God bless you up. Stay Don't know why I said that, not religious. Stay safe. See you next week. Bye.